When it comes explicitly to UK MMA, who is its best Michael? What's up, everyone? Shakiel Mahjouri here for CBS Sports, and we are days away from UFC 304 in Manchester, where the promotion's two English champions will defend their titles. Now, you might have noticed by now, I am not British, and we've enlisted two of the very best, UFC Hall of Famer and middleweight champion Michael Bisping, UFC welterweight contender, arguably pound for pound best dancer in MMA, Michael Venom Page.
Easy.
How are you guys doing?
I definitely win that one, 100%.
Yeah, listen, if it was a dance-off, Michael wins it all day long. I'm good at a couple of things. Dancing is definitely not on the list.
Well, this actually dovetails very nicely into the very first question. Probably, I'm curious to see which direction it goes. We're talking about not just 304, but the rich history of MMA in the UK. So I'd like to start here. When it comes explicitly to UK MMA, who is its best Michael?
Hey, to use an English expression, now you're taking the Michael. Taking the Mick. That means taking
it's Bisping all day.
Oh, stop it,
He's
stop
the
it.
main man. He's the main man.
I'm just older, as you can clearly see from my appearance. I'm old, I'm washed up, I'm a thing of the past, I'm yesterday's news. But I had a good long career. I just got to the dance earlier, that's all.
All right. Well, I'm glad we have the swath. I tried to get Ian Freeman on here too, but we couldn't make it happen. So you're gonna have to really take me back, Bisping, in his absence. I would like to start with UFC 304 though, just because it's timely, just because it's what's on the horizon. First thing, and this has sort of been an overarching plot in the heavyweight division ever since November, really. And I'll leave the floor. Actually, let's start with MVP as a current contender. Do you think that Tom Aspinall made the right call taking this fight against Curtis Blaydes when, in theory, at some point, there should be a heavyweight undisputed title fight on the horizon for him?
Yeah, 100%. If I'm me personally, if I'm in his position, I was definitely not going to wait. With John Jones, obviously, John Jones's career, in so much that happens inside and outside the cage. You never know what's going to happen in terms of trying to wait for a fight like that. And obviously, you're not the next in line, which I disagree with. I think he should be the next in line, but he's not the next in line. As we know, it's Stipe. So, yeah, definitely stay active. You're going to have to beat everybody at the top anyway. So there's no point waiting and losing that kind of sensitivity of being on show, being in the cage, taking that walk, go in there, take that fight. It's a difficult fight, but it's going to be a fight you're going to have anyway.
Yeah.
Definitely 100%. Just take it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And just to make a further point, obviously I agree with what Mike said, but also because I had a discussion with Tom, and Tom said he was going to wait on the sidelines, and I was very adamant that he was making a mistake. I said, no, Tom, forget that. Listen, Stipe versus John has been matched up. That's going to happen. In the meantime, you're in your prime. You've got massive earning potential. Continue to fight, continue to earn, continue to improve, perfect your craft, and continue to state your case. Of course, doing that, there is risks. Every single fight, you never know. It's not guaranteed you're going to win, but more than likely, I would put Tom Aspinall amongst anyone else in the division, other than Stipe and John Jones. I think he is definitely one of the best, and that's why he's the interim champion. So I think for all those reasons and what Mike said as well, with John Jones, I mean, sadly, he was just charged with some offenses. He's pleaded not guilty. That's going to go to trial now as well. You just never know. You just never know. And who knows? Maybe Jones wins the fight and retires. So maybe sitting around waiting for nothing. So Tom's going to be the master of his own destiny, which of course he is now being.
I'll leave this one open to the floor, whoever's sort of enticed to answer first. It's very rare for an interim champion to be defending their title. I think there's maybe only 4 other cases of it happening. Henan Barrow comes to mind, maybe Andrei Arlovsky. Is Tom kind of getting the short end of the stick, and is it fair that he has to risk his undisputed title shot, something he in essence earned by becoming the interim champ?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I definitely believe he should be getting the title. I think we're all, there's been a lot of other circumstances where it's the same thing. I think the fans believe that somebody should be getting it, but we know how it works in the UFC. It's a lot more than that. It's about your name. It's about the noise that you're making outside. It's about what the crowd maybe wants, or maybe it's just purely based on what Dana himself wants. So there are going to be circumstances that mean that you may have to wait that a little bit extra. Arguably, Leon Edwards was well in time for a title fight way before he ended up getting it. There's loads of instances where this is the case, but it's just part of the game. It's just part of the game. I think you kind of have to accept it. I think Tom has to accept that he's also not as big a personality outside. And because he doesn't necessarily create that noise on the outside of the cage, this is why you're not going to be first, put forward as quickly in these kind of circumstances. And I think we all need to remember as fighters that we are also our brand as well. So we need to make sure that we're focusing on building our brand on the outside. If you don't care to do that, which is fine, and I think he doesn't really care too much, he just wants to focus on fighting, then just accept that these kind of decisions may happen in that time.
Yeah, and just to further that point, I mean, let's be honest, the reason why the interim title as an opportunity came up was because John versus Stipe was postponed because of an injury. That is a sad reality in mixed martial arts. You can be frustrated with the situation, but fighters get injured all the time, so they postpone the fight. So to make up for it, to add to the razzle-dazzle, they made an interim title because John was going to be out for a while. Had that have not happened, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Tom wouldn't be the interim champion right now. I'm the biggest fan of Tom Aspinall. I'm always singing his praises, and I always talk about how great he is and the potential that he has and the career that I think he's going to have in the future. However, that's just the reality of the situation. He wouldn't be the interim champion right now had John have not gotten injured. So therefore, you can't be mad at that. It just kind of just is what it is.
MVP, are you sitting in like one of those massage chairs that they stick
on? It's not on. It's not on. Otherwise, you would have seen me like doing a worm or something. Like
no. Well, if you know Michael Venom Page, he has a team of actual human masseuse, a team of people, a harem of people that follow him around. They fan him down, they massage him.
These are my team. These are my team.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't use AI or machines for massages. No way.
MVP, we know you're a premier striker in the sport. Are we gonna be dipping our knuckles in petrol like Tom Aspinall is doing ahead of the fight?
Yeah, it's interesting because me and Bisping both were speaking about this in another call. I don't get. I feel like he's winding people up. He has to be, because I don't see how that's helping him, considering we have gloves. I know the gloves are slightly different, but I don't see why you have to dip your hand in petrol to help with that. I personally don't get it. Maybe Bisping does. I don't get it.
Well, I said at the start of the show, you were taking the mic. Well, Tom was taking the piss. Okay, he was winding that interviewer up. He was having a right laugh, and whoever it was fell for it, because there's no way, shape, or form he's doing that, and only a moron would believe it.
Listen, I'm gonna push this narrative either way. It's way too funny to let go. Now, Tom Aspinall is the interim champ, growing popularity in the UFC, but he is not undisputed. The man who is Leon Edwards, our welterweight champion, also taking part in the main event of this card. I remember after that, especially coming off of that, boom, headshot, head kick of Kamaru Usman, I was seeing Leon Edwards pop up everywhere. I was seeing him at WWE pay-per-views all over the place. How much of a boon was and has Leon Edwards been to sort of expediting the growth and popularity of MMA in the UK? Because you see it happening, for example, with Ilia Topuria in Spain right now.
Yeah, so obviously Leon was the second champ that the UK's had, coming after myself, of course. I think we've seen exponential growth in the UK in terms of the popularity and the recognition of the fighters that they receive, for the hard work that they do. That said, I still think there's a long way to go. From where I started to where it is now, it's day and night. It really is. However, still a long way to go. And I always use this example. I was talking about it the other day. I was in Bulgaria 2 years ago, and I spoke to a friend of mine. I just met him, and he's a massive boxing fan. And he was like, "Oh, I'm a huge boxing fan. I never miss any of the big fights. I go to a lot of them. I was raised on boxing." He said, "But that MMA stuff, UFC, it's not for me. It's a bit too violent and stuff like that." And then I had to start breaking it down, and we're sitting in my hotel room at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're going on about it, and we're having like a debate. And I'm trying to educate him. But the point of what I'm saying is that there is still a lot of people like that still feel that it's too much, that it's too raw, that it's too dangerous. Whereas on paper, it is far, far safer. To answer your question, of course, people like Leon, people like Mike, people like all the fighters that are competing at UFC 304, they've got a massive opportunity, a massive platform, and there's a huge amount of great UK fighters. But in terms of acceptance and acknowledgement from the UK public en masse, still a long way to go, sadly.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to. I'm so eager to get a fight with Leon Edwards, because I think it does so much for the UK, because we haven't had like a Chris Eubanks, Nigel Benn type of fight. Like, Bisping kicked down the door, but we haven't had somebody that could match Bisping at that same time, that was there at the same time, to have that kind of epic UK MMA clash. So that's the kind of thing that people talk about in history. And that's really why I want to get to that eager to get. I had a little minor setback, but I'm eager to keep pushing to get to that goal and make it happen in the UK and help exacerbate the popularity of UK MMA, because yeah, we have a long way to go. And I get it from like sponsorships. There's still sponsors and people that still kind of see it as something that's a bit, it's not, it's, boxing they'll do all day, but with MMA they're still unsure about it. A lot of them still watch it though. It's interesting because they still watch it, but in terms of being associated with it is where people are struggling. So yeah, we still got a long way to go, but again, people like Bisping waving the flag right at the front, shining the torch has definitely helped, and everybody else has come after him has definitely helped to build it to where it is now, but we definitely have a long way to go.
Yeah, and just sorry to interrupt, just Please. One more point on that. Part of the problem is that the time difference. It's primarily an American-based organization. Yes, it's a worldwide phenomenon, and it's growing massively everywhere. But the majority of the pay-per-views and the big fights, they're on US soil, and that's traditionally in the middle of the night in the UK. So it's really hard for fans, and don't get me wrong, we're so lucky the fan base that we have in the UK, because they're so passionate and they love the sport and they stay up all night. And I used to be one of those guys, but I live in America now for a myriad of reasons, nothing to do with the fact of training or anything like that, just my personal circumstances at the time. And when I have friends and family come over and stay with me, it's not very often because I don't have many friends, but when they do come over, seriously, they all say the same thing. We sit on my couch 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the fight starts, we're sitting and we're watching TV, and they're like, "This is crazy." I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "It's like a real sport." That's what they say. It feels like a real sport, like you're sitting down watching basketball or a soccer game or whatever the case may be. They're not having to stay up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and be absolutely exhausted the next day. And that is a big part why the growth hasn't been quite as accelerated as what it should have been.
100%.
It's so interesting you guys say that, because I was talking to one of my colleagues. He's over at Sun Sports, Chisanga Malata, and he thought that maybe this sort of overtaking of MMA to boxing is going to come sooner than we expect, just because some of boxing's biggest stars are on the tail end of their careers, and we have all these rising stars starting to populate. I mean, we got enough to fill out an entire main card at 304 this weekend. How long, I know you guys mentioned a lot of factors, many that are sort of out of the UFC's control, things like a second UK star in the same division making it to the title picture. If you had to just take a shot in the dark, how long before we see MMA on par with boxing in the UK?
It's almost there. It's almost there, certainly. And I know a big thing that people talk about. They go, "Well, look at the top boxers. Look at what they get paid compared to the top MMA guys." Number one, the top MMA guys are making a lot of money. You'll notice that they're not the ones complaining. And the lower level MMA guys, when it comes to pay, they get paid significantly more than the lower level boxers. And that's just a fact. So I mean, I'd say we're like not far behind, a year or two. We're right there. I mean, in terms of it's because boxing was what they used to say. Boxing, what your dad likes. MMA is what your kids like, you know. And as that generation's shifting and all the rest of it, it's right there. You know, it is right there, but it's still got a little bit to go.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's very close. I'd say maybe a bit longer, 3 to 5 years. I think before we really get that a massive shift. And I think it would be because there are got a few boxes that's going to fall off, and it's going to change a few of that. There are going to be a few boxes retiring, but hopefully also, as to what Bisping was saying in terms of the times that things are shown in the UK, because there's other shows now that's being shown on Channel 5, Channel 4. On there's other competing shows, which means there's MMA is becoming a bit more popular as a whole, which means people should be a bit more educated, and hopefully if we can get it at a bit more prime time in the UK, then it's going to make it 10 times easier. So yeah, 3 to 5 years, I think.
Bisping, I am curious. Obviously, I framed this to you first just because of the time that you got into MMA, as as today's elder statesman in Ian Freeman's absence. I'm curious with you. You mentioned how the UFC and MMA is still primarily a US based sport, global reach, global involvement, but really has its roots in America. When you first started fighting, what were some of the challenges you faced in terms of training, quality training, and opportunities relative to your American counterparts who maybe had more tools at their disposal in those early days?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of the same everywhere. It probably took a while in the States as well. But when I first started, I would drive all over the country to find training. I used to train with Ian Freeman. Ian Freeman was the first guy. He is the true pioneer from the UK. And I'm lucky that he was a training partner back in the day. And my first ever fight was on one of Ian Freeman's shows that he promoted. But yeah, I remember routinely driving down to Birmingham, which is like a 2.5 hour drive with me, just to do some high level jiu-jitsu. Then I'd go to Wales to do something else. And I'd go up there to do some kickboxing, wrestling. That was hard to find as well. Now, of course, it's up and down the country. There's so many great training facilities, so many great gyms that do a lot of specialist MMA training, cross training, all in-house. You can find everything, but back in the day, I mean, Braulio Estima is one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the world. I used to drive down to Birmingham. It's a long old trek down there just to get some decent grappling. That's where I had to go. But that was just kind of the fun of it as well. That was kind of the buzz of it, you know what I mean? Because it was so unheard of. But I remember going in to join a gym one day, and you got to fill in an application form for the gym. And there's what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm a professional athlete. Oh, well, what kind of athlete? I'm a fighter. What kind of fighter? Mixed martial artist. What is that? Cage fighter. And they look at you like, no, she said, are you one of those cage fighters? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, gotta keep an eye on this guy. He's a mental case, but that's kind of how it was back then. And the whole scene was just the Wild West. You would show up at these small little shows, and, these days it's real people, I'm talking about the lower grassroots shows, right? It's real people trying to make a career out of it. But back in the early days, there was all kinds of madness going on. It was a crazy, very fun, exciting place.
Bisping, is there one story that comes to mind from the craziness of the early days that you want to?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a lot, but that I can share with you. For example, like Ross Poynton, he was on the Ultimate Fighter 3 with me. I was fighting at Cage Warriors. And, I was always obsessed with getting in the UFC. So I was always, 100% focused and dialed in and all the rest of it. Ross was just a bit of a madman. He's a great guy, though. Shout out, Ross. And I showed up and I was fighting for the belt or something like that. And Ross showed up and he was black and blue and he had blood coming out of his eye. I'm like, what's going on? He said, oh, yeah, I had a fight on the way here. I'm like, you what? What are you talking about? I said, yeah, we had a road rage incident. This guy started saying this and that. I said something back. 2 of his mates jumped out of the car. One of them had a bat. So he'd had a massive brawl on the way to the fight. And then stepped in the cage and won, I think, as it happens. You know what I mean? So nothing really about the scene, but more about Ross Poynton. But, fun times for sure.
MVP, how would you compare the quality of training you can get in the UK now relative to what's available to some of your fellow fighters who are in the US?
Now, definitely there's gyms everywhere, which in terms of the level, I think that, we still have a little bit more to go in terms of, especially with wrestling classes and stuff. I feel they're a lot better. And there's so many people that have kind of crossed over. There's so many people from America that live in the UK now that they've set up gyms. There's so many people from Brazil that's in the UK that, set up gyms for the jiu-jitsu. So in terms of jiu-jitsu, like, our striking standard has always been top tier. Yeah, boxing, kickboxing, we've always had top. Yeah, but it's just been the other side. Even when I first joined, in my head, I had to move to America. In fact, the first gym I was going to join was American Top Team, because my family, I'm in Miami now. My family live in Miami. I was actually going to go stay by them and train at American Top Team at Coconut Creek. But that to show you just the mentality that I had, because I was like looking around and it felt like everything was stateside. But now there's gyms everywhere. There's gyms that even as I'm driving down the road, sometimes I'll see MMA or jiu-jitsu and I'm just like, I've never even heard of these people. But they're popping up absolutely everywhere, which shows you the dramatic increase of just MMA in the UK.
And also it's the level of professionalism around the sport as well. For example, in the States, you've got athletic commissions that oversee everything. That's not really a thing in the UK. The managers, they are learned people. They went to university. They know what they're doing. They're lawyers and things like that. In the UK, my manager was a convicted heroin dealer, okay, that went to prison, that was a murderous scumbag, that ripped me off many, many times, okay? And this is the kind of people that in the early days,
I'm still here.
yeah, that would happen, Mike, but he's still there. In the early days, that's how it was. And as the sport gets bigger, people like that get weeded out and you get more and more professionals. And the bigger the sport gets and the more money gets involved, it attracts a better class of athletes. And then people look at it as a real career path. That's where it is in the States now. And that's where it's going, heading in the UK, but still just a little bit further behind right now.
Yeah, as we begin to wrap up here, MVP, I don't want Michael's got a big enough has enough self-confidence as it is, so I want to let you sort of speak about him. What did it do, in your opinion, for UK MMA when Michael became the middleweight champion?
It's for me, it was big because it just shows, again, if everything felt very far, I was eager to be able to achieve that. But it made it a lot more like, oh, actually, I can actually do that. Like, it kind of reaffirmed what I felt like I could be done. I was seeing, people get close and drop short, and Jimmy Manuwa crossing into UFC was exciting news for everybody. But nobody really did anything outside of getting to the UFC. It felt like that was about all that. That was about all the UK guys could do. So yeah, these guys are cool. They can, they're good enough to just get to the UFC, and that's about it. And I believe, I'm like, no, I can get all the way. I believe I can do that. And then Bisping did it, and it's like 100%. Like, we know now, and I think that's one of the reasons why you get more and more people joining MMA as a whole, because when it's from your country, and you see one of your fellow countrymen do it, it's 100% now way more. That determination just escalates. You are so much more sure that it can be done when you see it done. The same way when you see these, 100-meter sprinters, records don't get broken for ages, and then somebody does it, and then all of a sudden, like 5 people do it straight after that as well. You know what I mean? And that's what Bisping represents to the UK, is we can all do this, and it has elevated everything. You've seen the wave of talent that's now coming out of the UK.
I'll let you guys sort of collaborate on this last one. I would like, between 3 to 5, however inspired you are, must-watch fights for anyone who wants to sort of get a sample of great UK moments in UFC or MMA history.
I mean, obviously, for me, I mean, I'd have to say my fight versus Anderson Silva.
Yes.
I was actually going to say that as well.
Yeah. But I'm an arrogant prick, so I beat you to it.
was there because you started going. I was like, I was gonna say, yeah.
So are you talking about British MMA fights, or are you talking about fights in general that British people should watch, or for
No, Brit fights. You know, if you were to say like these are the 5 greatest fights involving British MMA fighters.
Well, I think you're going to have Ian Freeman versus Frank Mir in there as well, because that was way back in the day, UFC 38 and a half, the brawl in the hole, first time in the UK. Frank Mir was the poster child of the heavyweight division, and Ian Freeman went out there and smoked him. There's another. Mike, you got anything?
I'm trying to think of all probably even I think that we used to have some, I'm trying to think of the old cage race. For me, that's when I first joined. So there was so many like epic fights in that, like obviously just it felt like maybe more for that region, but there were so many cool fights in that time. I'm trying to think of them now. I can't even think of any.
Well, there was Michael Bisping versus Mark the Beast Epstein.
Oh mate, and Mark the Beast, he used to train at Shoot as well.
I know. Shout out, Mark. Don't say anything. They'll come and get me. Hold on. What else?
He was one of the madmen from back in the day as well. So
yeah. Just a little bit.
I mean, I feel like we have to include the Leon versus Kamaru. Bisping beating Rockhold. You can't do this without the champs.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, they're so obvious. You know, they're so obvious.
I told you from the top. I'm here for the obvious shit, and I'm leaning on YouTube for the more
hardcore. Do you know what? Here's a really good one for you. Unexpected. Hold on. Paul Kelly versus Paul Daly. No. Paul Taylor. Paul Kelly versus Paul Taylor.
I can't think of that one.
Do you know Paul Taylor? He was a kickboxer.
Yeah, I know Paul Taylor. I can't think of
Paul Taylor fought Paul Kelly, right?
Yeah,
it was a war. It was insane for 15 minutes. It was mental.
Oh wow!
It wasn't the most technical display you'll ever see, but it kind of embodies the heart and the British fighting spirit. Boom, there you go. I haven't seen it in a while, so if you watch it back and it's a load of shit, I just cornered him at the time and thought that was crazy. You're like, what's this crap?
I'm gonna watch that.
An MVP on game here. Last one, guys, and I'll let you go. I'd like from each of you a prediction, including the present UFC roster and the past UFC roster. Who is most likely to go down as the greatest fighter in UK MMA history?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You can't tell.
Yeah.
Just for fun. I know we can't.
You know what? It's. I'm probably gonna say Tom Aspinall. I think Tom is going.
So based on current
or past. So Michael's in that conversation. Yeah. You MVP, you can be in that conversation. Leon,
I mean. Listen, you can only be the first once. There's only one. There can only be one king. But you know what I mean. These are just the facts. You know, climbed the mountain, pitched the fork, and said, let's go, everyone." No, I think Tom Aspinall. I think Tom, and I said this for a while, just from what I see. Obviously, he's got a very tough fight against Curtis Blaydes. Stylistically, that's a tough matchup. But I think, and I said this a while ago, and I mean it, I think he smokes John Jones. I think he smokes Stipe Miocic. And I think he probably smokes all the other heavyweight division until he decides to call it a day. Now, I might be wrong. I often am. But there's a good potential that he might go on and defend the belt 10 times or something crazy. You know, that's the kind of ability that I think he has.
MVP?
I think legendary status. You have to gotta say Bisping. I know he's here, but it's you gotta say Bisping just because just like I said, that moment for the UK meant a lot. So you gotta say Bisping. And to be fair,
I'm doing it with one eye.
Exactly.
Bonus points for that one.
Mate, until I came to your show the first time, I didn't even know that was a thing. That happened. So hearing that was just added to my respect for you. So yeah, 100%.
Anyway.
But also, I'd say based on where he's gotten to his career this far, the route that he's taken, and then I still think he's got a lot of time left in the sport still. You have to give it to Leon Edwards as well. I think he's been given the hard route every single step of the way. Still, and no complaints, just kind of kept doing it until he finally got to that place where everyone was like doubting him. He won it twice back to back, and like I said, he's still in a very current place in his career. So I feel like he can do. Obviously, he's going to be future competition for me, but I do feel like he can. You have to class him already almost there as being one of those memorable people for the UK.
Yeah, without question, Leon has to definitely get a mention. What he's achieved, the path that he took, the fights that he was willing to accept, people like Khamzat Chimaev and stuff like that nobody wanted to fight back then. And of course, he's defending the belt again. So this will be his third defense, which is, it's remarkable.
MVP, Michael Bisping, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time today. Full written feature, cbssports.com. Subscribe, tap the bell, thumbs up. MVP out here getting a massage, playing nanny to the kids, doing it all simultaneously. Let us know who you guys think has the best potential in UK MMA history. Bisping, MVP, if there's anything you have left to say, anything you want to promote, whatever, the floor is yours.
I need one of those massage chairs. And if you want to come to the podcast, believe you me, sign up to the YouTube page. Oh, that's good stuff. But I don't care. I'm out of it. MVP, buy me a nice present. See you in Manchester.
Yeah, well done. Nice one, man.
Conducted like an absolute champ. You people take care. The fans are what make this sport so fantastic. Without you 100%. Guys, we would be nothing. Over and out.
I love that.